intro. I don't know what I'm doing, but you know, it is the beginning of September. It's actually like September. It is September 4th. And it is time for August reading wrap up. And I'm very excited because I had 2 DNFs, but I also read 2 arcs. So I feel like it's pretty decent. How many books did I read? I need to find out. How many books did I read? I read 12 books, and I'm very excited about it because most of them were good. I had a couple iffy ones, but I'm excited to talk about them per usual. And I'm excited that I'm really trying to start doing this weekly video thing. Hopefully people will actually watch my videos and make it worthwhile, but we'll see. I enjoy making them either way. But yeah, let's talk about the DNFs first. I want to get that over with. So we're going to talk about DNFs. Also, just appreciate my stickers because I love my stickers on my laptop. Anyways, DNFs. So we have 2. So last month I said I was going to try and read through the rest of the Poppy War trilogy. I may have DNF'd the Dragon Republic at 20%. Just because I was struggling to continue being connected with the character and the story. It just felt like there wasn't much to keep me there. So I do want to finish the trilogy at some point, but right now it was not holding my attention. It was not great. That's kind of what happened with the other book. The other book I DNF'd was The Stardust Grail by Yumi Kitase. I DNF'd that one at 50%. I always try to, Dragon Republic was different, but normally I try and get to 50% in a book before I DNF it. This one, I did get to DNF, but I wasn't feeling the pull to be invested in the book and the characters and stuff. And I was really hoping it would be like Guardians of the Galaxy vibes, but it really wasn't giving that. So I was kind of disappointed. It was good. It wasn't grabbing my attention. But yeah, I did like it, but not enough to actually finish reading it. I just DNF'd it 2 days ago. I was just like, I'm just not getting into it. Maybe I'll read it, finish it at some point, but not right now. I did borrow it from the library, so I didn't feel as bad about DNFing it because it's not a book that I own. But yeah, those are the 2 books that I DNF'd. Let's get into the actual exciting things now. I read 2 advanced copies of books this month, which I didn't read any last month. I don't think I read any in July either. Well, last month was July. I don't think I read any in June either. Because I haven't really been I haven't seen anything really on NetGalley or anything that I really wanted to read. But Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales was on there, so I requested and I got it. And if you have watched my previous videos, you know that I am obsessed with those books. I think they're probably my favorite books that I've read this year. So I was excited to read the 3rd one, and it was a really good wrap up for the rest of the series. If it is the end of the series, I would personally not mind reading a dozen more of Emily and Wendell's Tales of Adventures in Fairyland. But I really, really liked it. It was a little bit slower and not as exciting as the other books. There was still danger, but it wasn't as much or as intense as the other books had in it. Why are trucks so loud? I don't understand. Back to normal life. But yeah, it was really nice because when I take a break from reading a series and then I have to finish it, I'm always scared that I'm not going to remember things. But within the first chapter, I was remembering everything that happened. Not because Heather Fawcett was actually talking about it, but because as soon as I started reading the story, everything else came flooding back because it felt like I just stepped right back into the world, right back where I was. And I loved that. That just made it perfect for me. But yeah, I didn't like it nearly as much as the first two, but I still did like it. And I do plan on getting a copy when it comes out in February. And you should too. If you enjoyed the first two books, I definitely think you will like this one too. The second book I got is Guardian by Kate Corsack. Kate is someone that I sort of kind of met on Instagram, which I'm taking a break from Instagram right now. But she is a really cool writer. She loves high fantasy, and she is working on a high fantasy duology, and this is the first book in that. So in the book, we follow Kyler, who is a like elf captain person, commander, I think is what she calls him. And at the beginning, he really wants to be the general because his old general is like gone in this world and like is lost, and so they're like, he's like in the running for the new one, and he really wants it, and he doesn't get it. I'm just gonna spoil it because I think that's in the thing. It happens right at the beginning, and he's just devastated. And honestly, at the very beginning, I really did not like Kyler. Yet again, why are cars so loud? You don't need to be that loud. Anyways, so where was I? That car just distracted me. What did he do? Anyway, oh yeah, he was very unlikable at the beginning. I couldn't connect with him. Like, there didn't seem to be any redeeming qualities. The further I got into the book, the more his sense of duty and loyalty towards his people and his God, like, showed up, and I did like that. And that actually is what kept me reading, because otherwise I didn't really want to read much more, because I would have finished it because I was given this copy to read and review, but I honestly was tempted to DNF it because I could not connect with Kyler. But at least try reading the book through about 25%, because by that point I was like, okay, he has some redeemable qualities. They didn't show up at the beginning, but they're here. Let's see where this goes. And it actually ended up being a really good story. I love the world that Kate created. It is perfection. Love it. Great high fantasy world. If you like elves and dragons and potions and magic, especially if you like the light and the dark magic going against each other, great book. I love the world. The other characters are also really interesting, and I really like the dynamic of there are two gods and they're warring against each other, and I really like that dynamic, and it's very interesting. And so I do recommend reading it, but you will probably have trouble getting through that first quarter. I am excited for the next book though, but I know that this one is coming out in November, and I think she's already working on the second one, but I don't think it's coming out for at least another year or two, which is kind of sad. But it is pretty good. But yeah, it comes out, I think, November 15th, but don't quote me on that. You should definitely look her up, follow her on Instagram. She is self-publishing, so definitely please go and support our self-published authors, because I'm very excited for her, and I think she's doing a good job. But yeah, Kyler's a little hard to get used to, but you get used to him, and then he becomes endearing, and you're just like, my poor baby. But you just got to get through that first like 25%, and the rest is great, and the world is great in general. So I separated these by like genre. So we're gonna start with science fiction, because I read A New Hope. I read the original Star Wars book, and this one actually came out the year before the first movie came out, which I found was interesting. But it was a companion novel, and it was ghost written by someone, I can't remember his name, but it was ghost written for George Lucas, which I won't go into that, but I feel like you should give the actual author's credit. Now I really want to see who ghost wrote. That's probably horrible English. A New Hope. Alan Dean Foster. Yeah. I think you should give credit where credit is due, and I don't approve of that. But it was a very good story. Alan did great. It was very similar to the actual movie. I am a big Star Wars fan. I do have the first 3 books, so episodes 4 through 6, and I plan on reading the next 2, maybe this month, next month, like September, October. Because I'm starting to get back into sci-fi, and I like that. Luke and Leia did kiss twice in this book, which is more than in the movie, and that just makes me more disgusted because I know that they're brother and sister, and I'm just like, really? Like, I hope that the scene where they find out that they're brother and sister is a lot more dramatic in the book than in the movie, because I really want to see that. But I am enjoying this. It was an all-knowing narrator, which I'm not used to. I don't know if that's an older style of writing or it's just something that they chose because it's a movie to book adaptation, but it was interesting, but it took some getting used to. I did enjoy reading it. But yeah, that's the only science fiction book I read that I finished, because technically Stardust Grail is science fiction, but I didn't finish it. But hopefully I'll read more this month, or in September. For historical fiction, I read a historical fiction book finally. I read Silence by Shusaki Endo, who is a Japanese author from like the 60s, I think. So the book is translated from Japanese to English. It's like 220 pages. It's really short. I actually watched the movie Silence, which has Andrew Garfield in it, which is part of the reason I watched it, but then I ended up loving the movie. I watched it like 2 years ago and bought the book. Did not read the book until last month. But honestly, I wasn't missing out much. The movie is definitely better than the book. I thought the movie was a lot better done than the book. The book was kind of honestly boring, and I don't know if that's because of translation or what, but yeah, I had a hard time getting through it. And yeah, it's about, if you're interested, it is about these 2 Jesuit priests who go to Japan during the 1700s to do missionary work. And during that time in Japan, there was a lot of persecution of Christians, and so it's following one of those priests and his story of dealing with that and how he like doubts God and his beliefs throughout the whole thing. And honestly, he was just miserable the whole time. And it was kind of sad. And I think partly why I like the movie more is because I prefer watching that sort of stuff than reading about it, because it's more dramatic and more in your face, because I'm a very visual person. So maybe that's why. But yeah, Silence by Shusaki Endo. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Per usual, I read mostly fantasy. Per usual, because that's usually how it goes, is I read a ton of fantasy. I read 2 cozy fantasy novels, because I needed some good cozy fantasy. So I read the next book in the Regency Fairy Tales series by Olivia Atwater, and this one was called 10,000 Stitches. I'm trying to remember. I don't have the description written down here for some reason, and I don't remember actually what it was about. I just remember being like, these are good cozy fantasy vibes, and enjoying it, which I feel like is really bad. And I feel like I should remember what it's about. Honestly, her writing is not very memorable, but it does create a beautiful picture and the vibes stick with you. But I did like it. I wrote that the ending was perfection. So don't know what that means. But the other one I read, well, technically I listened to it, was Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. it was it on Hoopla, I think? And so I listened to the audiobook, and honestly, it was perfect that way. I don't think I would have liked it as much if I had read a physical book, but as an audiobook, it was perfect. Travis does the audiobook himself. Travis Baldree does the actual like audiobook himself. It's very well done. He does the voices for all the characters, and they're actually really good. Because sometimes it's kind of weird, especially when guys do narrating girls. It was actually really good, and I really enjoyed it. And so it was great for listening while playing Minecraft this month. I read cozy fantasy, but I also read dark fantasy because I do love some good dark fantasy. I just can't read too much of it or it makes me depressed. But I read, there's a hair in my eye. Okay. I read When Among Crows by Veronica Roth. Finally, I borrowed it from the library, read it. Honestly, I don't understand what the hype was about. Like, it was interesting. It was a good story, but like, I don't understand why everyone seemed to be obsessed with it when it first came out. I did like the folklore. I love anything with like folklore, and it had a lot of, I think it was Polish folklore in it. I don't really know how to explain the plot of this book, because I was just kind of confused half the time, and that might be why I don't like it as much. But yeah, I don't really get the hype. It was a good story, but I don't get the hype. The other book I read was Slewfoot by Brom, and this was actually a really, really good read. It is the story of a rebellious woman in a Puritan colony in Connecticut in 1666. Magic and ancient forest god and all sorts abound in the story, and it's a wild ride. It was just really interesting, and it was a curious tale, and I love reading books about folklore, especially when they're based in real folklore. And I think that this one was based in a lot of Native American folklore, and like there's an old forest god, and there's like these little like creatures that serve the forest god, and it's just very interesting and very dark and spooky. And she does get like called a witch, and like, because it's Connecticut in 1666, someone's gonna get called a witch. Obviously. The ending was happy. It was actually a happy ending. I was not expecting a happy ending, and I was actually kind of sad that it had a happy ending, because I feel like that book would have been perfect with a sad ending. I think it would have made the story more impactful, and the message, which was about persecution, and like, I think it would have been more impactful if it had been like a sad story. But it's fine. It's fine. It was really, really good though. I definitely like highly recommend that book. I actually managed to read an entire series. It was a trilogy. I managed to read a trilogy in the month of August. I read The Folk of the Air finally. I started reading The Cruel Prince on Kindle Unlimited and was like, give me more. I need more right now. The first book I read by Holly Black was The Darkest Part of the Forest. I didn't really like it very much. Like, the world was interesting, but the story just it wasn't enough. This was amazing though. Like, genuinely amazing. Like, also, every time I turned around, something new was happening. Something unexpected was happening. And I wrote in my notes that Holly Black is a master of deceiving her readers enough to make you think she might be Faye herself. Also, I found a picture of this woman, and she has her ears modified to look like fairy or elf ears. And she genuinely looks like she writes dark fantasy novels, which is what she does. Like, she looks the part, and I am in love with it. I love it. She's really cool. I really like Carden and Jude the most in this whole thing. And just like, they give off Evangeline and Jack's energy, and I really, really liked that a lot. I wish I had read this sooner, because My one thing that I didn't really like about it is that it was just from Jude's POV. I feel like it should have been not just from hers, but from Cardan as well. I would have loved, especially in like the last book, I would have loved having both of them, hearing from both of them, but we didn't get that. So it's kind of sad, but it was very good, very well written, great world building. I think I want to read, I don't remember what the duology that follows Jude's little brother, I don't remember what it's called, but I do want to read that now because I hear it's not as good, but I feel like I will still enjoy it. But I really like The Folk of the Air. If you like kind of dark but also cozy fantasy, it's a good read. The last book that I want to talk about is a nonfiction book that I read, and honestly this is the best nonfiction book that I have read in months. It is called Break, Blow, Burn, and Make. It's by E. Lily Yu. I never heard of her before, but I do want to read her fiction book on Fragile Waves because it's really good. I found this in M. Judson's downtown, saw it, read the little blurb about what it is, and was like, I need to read this book. And I read it in a weekend. It is basically about being a creator, a writer, an artist, and like how to create well. And also, I'm a Christian and she is too, and creating from a Christian viewpoint, and from that viewpoint, creating so that you're creating with God. You are creating as a partner with him, the greatest creator that we have. And I fell in love with this book and I want to read it again. I highlighted a lot of things in here, and I feel like this is not just a book for Christians. This is also a book for anyone who's a writer or a creator. I feel like there's a lot you can get out of it. So I would suggest this for anyone who is a writer and a creator. So I wanted to read a little blurb from this because I just, why do we live if not in hope that some glimpse of deeper meanings, of deeper mysteries, will sometimes flash out through the common moments of our days and grant us the wisdom and courage to continue living? And she's specifically talking about when we read, how we read. Like, we read searching for greater and better things than we already have, and as writers we specifically are looking for greater and better things to share with people within ourselves and about the world. And she talks all about like craft and like crafting. What does a good story look like? What is your vocation when it comes to writing? Collaborating with God if you're a believer, and like, it's just such a good book. And I definitely recommend this if you are a writer, if you are a creator in general. Like, this is a good book to read. And I am really glad that I read it, and I wanted to put it at the end just because it was so good and I loved it. I don't really have much more to say about it other than you should definitely pick up this book and read it. It is worth the money to buy this. At least it was for me. Thank you for coming to Lost in Stacks and listening to me ramble and talk about all the books that I read. I don't know how many people watch these or actually enjoy them. I just am glad that I can make them, and it encourages me to read as well. I don't remember what I have on my schedule for my next little thing, but let's see. All book recs. That's gonna be fun to record. I have a lot of recommendations. I'm excited to do that, so I look forward to sharing that with you. I think I'm gonna be skipping next week because I have a lot going on next week, but after that we're gonna have so much fun. So I'm glad you came and you watched this video. I hope it was enjoyable for you and you pick up some good books to read in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, bye.